In this second Unit 2 TI-84 video, we're going to cover creating a residual plot. So in the previous video, okay, I'm going to go on my the stat button. I'm going to hit enter on edit. Right, we had our data for chest size and weights of bears, right, and we created the actual regression equation by hitting that stat button, all right, and running this option, okay, number 8. Right, when we did this, it told us what the slope and y-intercept are. Okay, it gave us the correlation coefficient and coefficient of determination. And another thing that it does, unbeknownst to us, is it creates a list of residuals. Okay, now in our lists here, yours probably goes up to list 6. All right, and we can see what these residuals are. All right, so you don't need to do this, but just to kind of show you where these come from, in our vars button, underneath that down arrow, that's not where it is, I'm sorry. It's in the list option above the stat button, so second list. Okay, if we scroll down here, we see our list 1 through list 6. If we keep going, eventually we'll find one that says resid. Okay, and if we hit enter on that, it'll populate that list with the residuals that it calculated when we ran the regression. So if we haven't run the regression, those won't be here and this graph won't work, just to kind of show you. All right, so if I were to clear that out, when I do that linear regression here, okay, and I go back and I look at my lists again, that's when it fills all those in. Okay, so you can't do this next step before running that regression and populating this list, which happens automatically. All right, moving on. We want to create a residual plot. So the residuals are the difference between the actual value in our actual points in the scatter plot and what's predicted by the line of best fit. All right, so for example, if we were to graph this, okay, we would have the line of best fit that goes through these points. Some of the points, most of the points would miss that line of best fit by some value. That value is the residual. All right, so we want to change this scatter plot to look at the residual plot instead of the scatter plot. So I'm going to hit the second key and the y equals button, and I'm just going to go into my plot 1. Okay, and the only thing that I'm going to change is list 2. So still a scatter plot, we still have list 1 as the x's. All right, but instead of list 2 here, we want to put in that residual list. So second button, all right, above the stat key, you'll see that item that says list. All right, and then we go down till we get to residual. Right, when we hit graph, okay, we pretty much see nothing. I can see one point kind of peeking off the bottom there. All right, I need to zoom to the data, so the zoom button, and then 9. All right, and that shows us our residual plot. Okay, and this is what we want to see with a residual plot. We want to see something that's sufficiently scattered. We don't want to see a straight line like we did with that scatter plot. All right, we also don't want to see any kind of pattern at all. Like sometimes we'll be able to see what looks like almost like a parabola. All right, if we see any kind of pattern in the residual plot, it's telling us that we're running a linear regression on something that's not actually linear. Okay, and it's not good to do that. So we always want to look at this after we make the scatter plot and we run a regression, and we're hoping to see something like this, something that kind of just looks like nothing, dots all over the place. All right, because if we see that, points that are just scattered all about in our residual plot, right, that's telling us that it's okay to do a linear regression and it's an appropriate model.